everyone, Peter Hermes here. I'm excited to start off the speaker series for Drive Time. The first part that we're kind of going into the value chain is buying cars. And for us at Drive Time, that's about understanding Buyonic. So with that, we'll kind of go a little bit more into three things for Buyonic. One, what does it do? Two, what is it? And three, how does it impact the organization? So with that, just to give you some perspective for buying cars, we actually buy around 140 to 150,000 cars a year, and that actually equates to about $1.5 billion. So clearly, it's probably one of the biggest opportunities we have as we optimize what we buy in the value perspective. And as you think about just the impact that that can have in the organization, is the fact that if we're able to improve how we buy by 1% only, that's actually $15 million for the company. So it's really impactful, great opportunity that we have as an organization to really get better with. So now we're going to talk about how we acquire inventory. Really, there's two main avenues of how we acquire inventory. First is actually through auctions, which we have three main partners that we work with. One is Manheim, who's the biggest player actually in the industry, and we buy about 55% of our inventory through them. Two, we have Odessa, who's our second biggest partner. We buy about 20% of inventory with them. And third one is independent auctions that are kind of small clusterings throughout the country that we buy about 10% of our inventory from. On the second part, we actually have strategic partnerships, and that is really on two avenues. And that is one with rental car and fleet companies such as Budget, Avis, Hertz, Enterprise. And the second piece is actually with manufacturers. And so we've been able to get partnerships with Chrysler Credit, Hyundai Kia, Nissan Infiniti, Mercedes-Benz On Demand, as well as BMW. So really those are the avenues that we're able to kind of dive into how we acquire inventory. But instead of focusing on that 15% and the partnerships, we're really going to dive further into today about the auctions, where we really buy 85% of our inventory currently. Now that you've seen the video and how crazy the auction environment is, when you think about how do we actually have to go through 10 to 11 million units to really find just the cars that we need? If you think about it, how do we find the right car at the right location for the right price for the right customer? For us, that solution is Buyonic. But what is Buyonic? Funny thing for this presentation, actually, my hardest one to come up with was how do I come up with a definition of what Buyonic is? How do I think about all the interactions and all the things that it does in like a 15-word sentence? I probably spent most of my time actually trying to figure this one out as I put this together. So what it is an internally built technology that brings together art and science into a solution that simplifies a very complex and dynamic environment. That may sound great. It's a great definition and encapsulates what it means, but what really is Buyonic? And for us, what really it is as all people have kind of come together to create this solution between operations, analytics, IT, what it really is an industry-leading technology and a competitive advantage for Drive Time. But that's not just what we think. It felt great writing that, felt great typing it, putting it up on the screen, but really where we heard that is actually from all of our partners. So we actually go out multiple times a year, meet with our partners, meet with the industry at different shows, and we always give them updates of what's happening with Drive Time. And so I've been lucky enough to actually show Buyonic throughout the kind of process and the journey where it's at today. And every time actually I get done with showing it, everyone has the same question first off. They're like, wow, that is amazing. My mind is blown. But are you guys ever going to actually buy cars for someone else? And I'm like, that's not our priority right now. Our priority is really about understanding how do we better buy cars for Drive Time. And the thing that's amazing about that is they get so impressed with the technology, the integration points with the different partners, that they can see just how far advanced it is in the industry. And that makes us feel, again, like this is going down the right path to really differentiate drive time itself. So you're probably thinking two things right now. One, wow, does Peter really love to talk about Buyonic and is super excited about what it does? And then two, what's art and science coming together? And what does that really mean? So for example, as we talk about the art side, and I say user-based reconditioning assessment, what that really means is for the buyers to actually understand the condition of the car. And whether that means they're looking at a condition report that the auctions provide, or actually seeing and touching the vehicles themselves. And then how does that actually marry though with the science side? So we have the art of the buyers and their assessment, and then what we're working towards is actually partnering with data science to build actually models that will predict the estimate based on the condition report and just the history of the vehicle. So it's really trying to blend the best of both worlds between art coming together as well as the science. And then finally, with the vehicle disposition side, we actually don't buy vehicles that have a front tow hitch. However, we don't get that in the data itself. Therefore, our buyers will actually take a look at the condition report or look at the vehicle in person. And if they see that it has that, then they will disposition the vehicle as a no buy attribute. And on the science side, what we're working towards is, say we had bought already a Ford Fusion for the day. We don't need any more Ford Fusions for the today or the week. We can automatically disposition those vehicles as size, cost, target met, and actually don't show those in the buyers. Again, it's always about becoming more efficient and more optimum in the process. And now that we know what Buyonic is, I want to get a little more insight into the evolution of Buyonic. And before I walk through this timeline and this journey, I really want to give a big thanks out to three main groups. One, I want to give a big thank you to the IT and BI team on the inventory side. They're actually the ones that created and developed the solution itself, so without them, we wouldn't be here. Two, I want to give a big thanks to the inventory analytics teams. Their partnership with IT and operations and all the value engines behind the scenes that we don't see were crucial for this coming together. And finally, and probably most importantly, just the operational teams. Their patience for the buying groups and understanding and feedback along the way on this journey, we wouldn't be where we're at today. So again, thank you to all those groups. Your support, your understanding, and your help was crucial for us to be where we're at as an organization. So with that, we'll kind of jump into where we started back. Back in actually 2015, we realized the fact that there was an opportunity. There was a problem in the marketplace. We were buying about 30% of our inventory through bulk or proxy, which for proxy, what that means is basically that you're buying a car today when it runs tomorrow. And so you'll bid on a car today and you'll say, hey, I want to spend $10,000 on it. When it actually runs tomorrow, the bid that you place will actually get picked up when it's running and done iteratively until your max bid is present. And so at that point, it's obviously a much more efficient and optimum way to bid so that you can see more units. We're all the way down at 30% back in 2015 to where you look at now in this year, in 2019, we're actually all the way up to 80%. So a huge progress along the way. And now we'll kind of dive into the journey year by year. So in 2016, a couple of our big things was we actually partnered with IT and created the prototype for what Buyonic will eventually become. We actually built it in a different application, so it was a Microsoft base at the time, not what we're at today. But as well as in 2016 was a big year, is the fact that we actually launched a pilot with the online buying team in this new interface. Had tons of learnings and super productive, but I think we also, one of our big takeaways was we realized it wasn't what it needed to be moving forward just with how dynamic the environment is. And then as we get in 2017, we actually created the version that we are seeing today in Buyonic on that current platform. So it was a big win as we realized kind of the year prior that it wasn't going to be a long-term solution. Then we developed in the solution that it is today. Additionally, that year, we incorporated KUB decode into the application as well. This was extremely powerful because this allowed us to tie together pricing as well as how we buy cars and further integrate those decisions together. As we headed into 2018, we made a ton of progress that year in the fact that we're actually able to launch in Q2 the Buyonic application to every buyer, whether they're in lane or online. So the entire buying team had the power of the Buyonic solution in their hands. Additionally, as we rolled into later that year, we expanded with Odessa rolling into Buyonic. So now we have our top two auction houses with Mannheim and Odessa into Buyonic, and every user also has Buyonic. And then finally, in December of 2018, we actually launched the My Buy section. A way to think about that essentially is it's a shopping cart on any website you go today. That allows us to say, hey, we won this car, this is the amount we're willing to spend on it, and also this is where we want to send the vehicle to. It's really the first part of automating the purchase process. And here we are this year in 2019. And like I said earlier, we're able to be up to 80% of our buys are now through online and proxy. Additionally, as we got all that great feedback, as we were meeting all the different vendors in the industry, we've also officially trademarked Buyonic this year as well. So from an organization, we're super proud of the fact that we've come this far in this short amount of time. Additionally, we're working at for the rest of this year and into early next year is getting some of the online platforms for both Mannheim and Odessa into Buyonic itself. We're hoping that by the end of this year, early next, we'll be up to about 80% of our buys actually through Buyonic. So now that you've understood a little bit about the journey, we really want to show what that actually journey looked like. So for our buying team, for the IT team, the analytics teams, what did those different softwares and solutions look like along the way? For the first version, which you'll see on the far left-hand side of the screen, really is about understanding two main things. One, can we move data back and forth? Can we get data from one of the auctions, do some scrubbing on it internally, then put it in the app, have the buyers actually utilize it, choose a different lane, select the vehicle, choose that they won the car, and then get that actually back down internally and scrub it again. We're able to successfully do that, so that was a big win. Second piece was what we were trying to understand is, can we actually evaluate and buy a car in real time in a single lane? So we had a buyer actually go through utilizing this tool, stand in a lane, and as vehicles were going through that, could they actually buy the vehicle in real time? Once again, we were successful with this. However, as you saw in the video, many lanes are happening at once, many cars are running at once. And so we had to be able to empower the buyers to be able to handle multiple auctions and multiple lanes all at once. And that's what actually the second version was about that you can see on the right-hand side of the screen. Was really our attempt to be able to understand, can we expand this out to be multiple auctions and lanes all at the same time? And so you can see here that a user is actually able to choose a different auction or a different lane. However, again, they're only working that one auction or that one lane. So again, we were able to expand it out from the first version, but we still realized that we needed something to be more powerful and more dynamic to handle the complexities of the auction environment. Now that you have a better idea of the journey that we've been along this way, we actually want to show you some screenshots of Buyonic and what it actually looks like in practice. We're going to start with the preview section first, which essentially another way to think about it is the homework. So as you can see in the video, they're choosing preview. From there, they're choosing the sale date in question of what they're going to work. They're choosing the auction house that they want to utilize as well. So for this example, it's Mannheim. And they also can then choose multiple auctions all at once in Mannheim that they want to look at. They're choosing Mannheim, Pennsylvania. They have chose all the lanes in this scenario to work. And from there, they're going to see a list of vehicles that fit the DriveTime brand. As we said earlier, there's about 10 to 11 million units that are running at all times throughout the auctions. So the ability to get what's a DriveTime branded vehicle, which happens behind the scenes, is super powerful. As you can see here, there's about 2,000 units that are running overall. We also allow them to filter whether it's to a core unit or high tier unit to really get to more of a workable list as they attack the auction. Additionally, they have the ability to select down to a make and model level. So depending on our targets and our requirements for the day and the season, we're able to really focus on just those units that we want to see. So in this example here, they're choosing just F-150s that are running in Pennsylvania to look at and potentially preview. The next step of Buyonic is actually filling in the repair estimate. So for here, our buyer will then go to a vehicle and choose it. For example, they're choosing F-150. They'll click the CR report button, which will pull up the condition report that the auctions provide. In this condition report, they're able to go through the pictures, assess what damage is there, as well as below in the bottom section, which we'll get to shortly, is the thing called the damage overview. As they're going through the damage overview, they're then able to see what is actually called out by the auction and the inspectors themselves on what is needed to be replaced on this vehicle. So for this example on this vehicle, you can kind of see that the windshield has a crack on it of 4 inches to 5 inches. Based on that, our buyers would go back into the inspection side and fill in the tire and glass that $150 of glass work is needed. Once it's saved, in this example, they're going again back into the condition report and they see that there needs to be some cosmetic repair based on the damages that are listed. They go into exterior cosmetic, put a $100 repair estimate, save it, go back to your summary, and now that you can see in the main screen that a recon estimate of $250 has been filled out and we know what this vehicle is going to need to get up to our drive time standard. The next step of Buyonic is the decode process. This is where our buyer will actually go in and click decode, and it'll actually do a connection with KUB itself. As the buyer launches this, they'll see the different trim packages that are potentially available to be selected. Our buyers that are in front of the vehicle, they'll actually use the condition report to see what trim it is. They'll choose that into Buyonic, and from there, it actually will launch a bunch of different options and packages that are associated with that. All of these options and packages add value to the vehicle itself and make sure that as we're pricing the vehicle, we're also buying the vehicle the right way. Once that vehicle is saved, they go back to the summary screen and they'll actually see that a DT book value has now been calculated. This DT book value is actually the value that we recommend the buyers to utilize to ensure that we're hitting our profit numbers that's also connected to the pricing overall. So we have the DT book value in Recon, but now it's time to bid. As we were putting this presentation together and we started actually recording the bidding process, it was so fast that actually I couldn't keep up with what I had to tell you. So as you watch this video, you'll actually see the bidding process just loop going over and over again. So as I call out certain things, you'll eventually see it as it goes by so fast. Really, there's three main things that they can select as they bid vehicles. One, do they want to do a proxy versus a live bid? Two, which IC they want to choose at? And three, what's the amount that they want to bid? As they go through this, and we talk about whether they want to proxy or live bid it, that allows the kind of the art to come in play for the buyer. Do they want to actually see and touch the car potentially in lane, or are they comfortable with a proxy bid being placed on this unit? Additionally, when they choose the IC in question, you'll see that that list is actually pre-populated. That pre-populated list is based on actually analytics behind the scenes, determining what unit is actually open where and what's the preferred location based on transport cost and need. And then finally, in this example, they're placing a $13,000 bid. It's placed and it shows up on the bottom of the screen that the bid has been placed on their behalf. Now that the bid is done, it's time to win some cars. For us, now we're going into the live auction and trying to better understand that real-time tracking of what's actually happening. For us, we're trying to focus on really simplifying the process for the buying team on notifying what did we win, what did we lose, or what did we no bid. It's all about matching the speed of the auction. For example, in here, the buyer is able to choose that they want a vehicle, as simple as that, choose the amount that they want it for, and press save. That then actually allows us to know behind the scenes that that vehicle has been won. As we think about how this evolves, we can get more dynamic in our ability to change the bid values or change what vehicles we want to bid on. This is really the first step of automating the purchase process for us. After this, we kind of go into the next step, which is really the My Buys, which, as I alluded to earlier, is about the shopping cart. Now it's time to finish the buying process, and for drive time, that's My Buys. Once they choose My Buys, they will get the auction that they can pick, as well as the vehicles that they purchased at that auction. In the closing out process, they will input the buy fee that we have to pay the auction for buying the car, a PSI fee for the vehicle, as well as the guarantee, which essentially means can we return the car or not, as well as the auction that we're sending the vehicle to, and the purchase channel that we purchased the vehicle in. In this example, you'll see that the IC location highlighted red. That's to notify the buyer that the recommended IC destination has changed from the time that they purchased the vehicle until they're closing out the My Buy section now. Once all the vehicles have been purchased correctly, now it's time to kind of tie out the vehicles relative to the invoice that we get from the auction. The invoice that we get from the auction is actually called the buy net. In here, the buyer will input the amount from the buy net, and that will compare to the actual number of units that they did individually. As that comes total, you'll see that the buy net input does not match the Buyonic input, which is at the VIN level. When they see that this doesn't line up, it'll highlight red in the application to notify the buyer that they need to change the total amount or change the individual level VINs to make sure that they are aligned. Once it's lined up, it'll go green. From there, they're able to choose destination and have an easy kind of quick summary of what vehicles are going where. Once they choose submit, that allows them to notify that these vehicles will be purchased into our system for those according locations. Once the amount, the destination, and the vehicle level VINs are all lined up, you'll see the trophies on the My Buy vehicles, highlighting the fact that the process is done. Now that you know what Buyonic is, you've seen the tool in detail, but let's really talk about why does this give us a competitive advantage. What we're going to show you here actually is a little side-by-side of how the industry buys cars and how Drive Time buys cars. Now that you've seen the video, you can see how powerful the Buyonic solution it is. For our buyer drive time, as you saw on the screen, he had about 6 to 8 different lanes all running at the same time. Those could have been in the same auction, could have been different auctions throughout the country. But our ability to evaluate that and then go back and forth between Buyonic and all the understanding and power that has with that environment really gives us competitive advantage in the industry. So while we are super proud of Buyonic, and it truly has changed the game, we're only halfway there in the full value that actually provides drive time. So what's next, you say? Well, first off, we're getting the additional inventory feeds into Buyonic. So we're going from buying 50 to 60% of our buys through Buyonic up to 80 to 90% into early next year. Additionally, we're really working on enhancing the value engine behind the scenes that goes into that. So we're partnering with data science to better understand depreciation, warranty, expected profit, availability, and consumer demand. Third, we're really trying to further optimize how we evaluate the vehicles. Like I mentioned earlier about if I don't need to see this vehicle because it's already running because I bought enough, not showing those to the buying team as well. And then finally, and this is a little bit further down the road, more probably 2021 aspect, is how do we automate the decode? How do we partner with whether it's manufacturers or different data companies to understand the true attributes that are on the vehicle and not have to have our buyers do that and really have the art focused on a different area that provides more value to the organization. With that said, I appreciate you taking time out of your day today to learn a little more about Buyonic and the journey that got us to where we're at today, and stay tuned to the next part of the value chain.